Good Friday afternoon, ready or not? Mostly not. We are ready for you. Golden Black Live, you are watching. Stacy Clarity, Kyle Charters, they have little names below there. That gives you that best indication of who they are. And I'm Alan Karpick, and welcome to the show. All right, we're going to start with those hard-hitting questions first, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about the show. But Stacy, obviously, a good win for the Boilermakers last week. In fact, that they got one and won one of the Big Ten in Iowa. You guys were traveling partners all the way to Iowa City. You will travel all the way, halfway across the prairie tomorrow to Illinois. But where are we with Purdue football after last week?
Well, especially after hearing how bad Illinois is on our Golden Black radio show on Monday from someone who covers Illinois, I think Purdue should smoke them. That's what I said on Monday. So I think just the glimpses that Purdue showed that they could maybe be better on offense and on defense against teams that aren't very good is enough to make me think that Purdue has some momentum going into these last two games. But seriously, though, I really liked the way the offense changed some things up. And really, they knew they had to protect Robert Marve. Just with how poorly that offensive line has played, they did that by doing some different things, keeping the tight ends kind of closer to the line. I'm not sure they'll be able to take that same approach this week against a team that blitzes a lot. Patrick Higgins told me on Wednesday that could be difficult. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to try to change it up again this week. But like I said, I think there were definitely some good things that Purdue fans saw on last Saturday.
I thought we were going to start with men's hoops, and I was all charged up here. I was trying to figure out which curse words I was allowed to say on the internet, which ones I'm not. But then you hit me with football to start.
Which sometimes has made us curse this year. But
yeah, that's true.
But no, in all seriousness, again, Illinois, and we will get to last. Brian's on the A train in Manhattan trying to get away from Madison Square Garden. Maybe he's trying to get closer to it, but we'll have Brian on, and we will hit the Villanova issue, so to speak. But really, Kyle, on where the Boilermakers are, again, Illinois not good. Purdue maybe now becomes a little bit interesting to watch.
Sure, I think so, and I think that at least they were exciting. I think on offense, which I'm not sure we've been able to say for the first 8-9 games of the season, whatever it's been. And, a lot of that is the credit, I think, to Robert Marve and what he was able to do. And Stacy said it, they did some things differently. Part of the staff, I think, will admit that they did some things differently. The other half won't. But, they kept the tight ends there a little bit to try and chip those defensive ends for Iowa to give Robert a little bit more time. And whether he has one or two receivers out there running routes, I think he puts the ball on the money and throws it hard enough that he can get it there. So, I think that combination worked out well for Purdue. Now, that said, they still made a whole host of errors in the second half of that game against Iowa that really made what should have been a relatively easy win come down to the final seconds. And I suppose as you go into the weekend against a very, very bad Illinois team, that leaves you a little bit concerned that they'll maybe play down to their competition and keep the Fighting Illini in there.
Pedestrian is a term for Illinois. I don't even think they're really pedestrian. They're not very good at least on paper.
Now, some of the stuff they do makes no sense at all.
Yeah. Who, Illinois?
Yeah, Illinois. I mean, the whole offensive coordinator system that they have, where one guy calls plays on first and second down, and the other guy, because he's really good at it, calls plays on third down. I mean, that makes no. Who would do that?
Yeah. This wouldn't be the pot calling the kettle black. No, I didn't going to say anything like that. In terms of some things that have happened here that some people don't understand that the coaches have reasons for doing. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Questions on this is how this show works, and I really would like to mention our sponsors too. And you guys can give them a couple minutes to surf the internet. We do have some questions we need to answer. Hilton Garden Inn, one of our sponsors. You can click on their ad until you're blue in the face as you see it on the screen. When tomorrow is a big day, stay at HDI tonight. Christy Kuntz, a good friend of the show, and we appreciate her support. Trent Johnson, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Trent is always busy. He works tirelessly for your needs in the insurance industry, and also a big Purdue fan. And of course, Jeff Julich and our friends at Follett's Purdue Pride. Jeff and his group have been big supporters of Purdue sports for a long time, and they have been Purdue's game day outfitters since 1945, or Game Day Central, I guess, the place to go for game day stuff. And that's older than Jeff is. So we have questions here in terms of from LDMI, which I don't know what that might stand for, but he said almost verbatim the same comments about Illinois as what I heard prior to the Minnesota game. Are we setting ourselves up for trouble somehow? Maybe it's just me. Yes, it's just you, but no, no. I have to admit that thought has crossed my mind. But Illinois, I don't know that Illinois could score 24 points against themselves with no defense, at least the way it's looked of late.
Well, it's funny because in my comment from last week leading into the Iowa game, I said it feels like the same thing with Minnesota because when you look at the opponents, they seem inferior, and so you would think that Purdue would have an advantage pretty much across the board, but obviously they play the games for a reason, and we've seen Purdue not perform up to standards several times this year, so it is actually
really?
Absolutely true that they could be setting themselves up.
I think Purdue.
But I would be really shocked if they don't win.
I would be too. I think largely the Boilers have said the right things all season long. I tend to believe it a little bit more this week for some reason. They have said we need to focus on ourselves.
Right.
The fact that Illinois is 2-8 and has lost 12 straight in the Big Ten doesn't really matter to us. We've proven, they've said things like this. We've proven all season long that we can't just go in and waltz our way through a game. And, that sounds good. That, it leads you to believe that perhaps, things will be different this Saturday than they were in that Minnesota game.
Well, now we're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and that is the fact we're talking about a team in Purdue, and I'm not trashing Purdue here, but the fact that you're 4-6, we're going to bring in Tom Dienhart here, and we're going to have a little bowl talk because that is really what the Boilermakers are playing for. Tom, are you there?
Yeah, I hear you, Al. I'm right here, buddy.
All right. Well, you are well equipped to guess just what bowl the Boilermakers made, but also obviously for the big Tom Dienhart, if you don't know, doesn't need any introduction on this show. He was here live a few weeks ago, is that Wisconsin game?
It was the Michigan
game. That one didn't go much better for Purdue. But
about the same.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Both those games about the same.
Yeah,
it's hard to think that, again, 4-6, we're talking about Purdue in a bowl game, but I'm not breaking news to you guys, is that you got to like the chances of it happening. And, the Big Ten's got 8 bowl slots. It looks like only 7 are probably going to get filled here. And, again, Purdue could be the last team under the velvet rope, so to speak, obviously, if it wins tomorrow and then at home against the Hoosiers here. So, again, if that's the case, then you got to like Purdue going to that Heart of Dallas Bowl, which, of course, is the old Ticket City Bowl, where they'll play a team from the Big 12 most likely, and a lot of people think it could be a team like a Baylor, maybe even a Texas Christian, who knows, possibly a West Virginia.
That'd be interesting because we've been reading stuff, and again, the Big 12 will be in a position to fill its bowl quota, do you think? I mean, because we've been reading some stuff about, maybe they'll have to be an at-large team, but how do you see that breaking down?
Yeah, if it's not a Big 12 team, if that's an issue, it could be a team from Conference USA as well. That was obviously you had a tie with Conference USA, and still I think has a loose one, Allen. And if that's the case, it could be someone like a Tulsa or maybe a Central Florida type of team. So I honestly, as selfishly as a fan, it's always fun to see you play at more of a named school, and it sure would be kind of fun if Purdue could get a chance to square off with the Big 12 team that brings a little bit of name brand recognition with it to the game.
Stacy on Monday guaranteed Purdue would be in a bowl game this year. I think are the words that she used. Guaranteed.
No, you said guaranteed. I said sure.
All right, I don't remember how exactly that went, but Tom, most people it seems have Minnesota as being a more favorable team for most bowl representatives or most bowls. Is that the way it sounds like you see it too? And why do you think that is?
Yeah, Kyle, I think if you just compare the programs side by side, I think you get the sense that Minnesota's more of a program on an upward ascent. Maybe there's a little bit more excitement around the fan base with the program just in year 2 under Jerry Kill. Hasn't been to a bowl since 2009. So I think maybe those are some of the reasons why the Gophers may be seen as maybe more of an affiliate selection than a Purdue, which obviously I think in year 4 is definitely a program you wouldn't say is ascending at all. So I think that may be part of it. If you just look at a style of play standpoint, I don't think either team really has an edge over the other as far as that goes. As far as alumni bases, and all those things. I know Minnesota's a huge school, probably has more alums, but we all know Purdue's an awfully big school too.
You know, and when obviously the elephant in the room to some extent is if Purdue has some transition in its coaching staff. Obviously, Illinois went through that last year with Ron Zook. Does that have effect in this situation at all? And if Purdue decides to make that change, and we obviously that's not been determined yet, but does that have an impact on how these bowls view these teams?
I would think so, Alan. Yeah, to a degree. I think Illinois even had their players vote on if they wanted to go to that game last year, and they obviously voted they wanted to. Of course, they went out to San Francisco, played UCLA in that Emerald Bowl, and they they won. So again, I think maybe that would have to have a play on how you get selected or where you get selected. Al, there's no doubt about it. Again, it's not unprecedented if there's a coaching change for a team still to go to a bowl. We see it happen every year. So again, there's so many other X factors that we're talking about that really could impact where Purdue lands. But again, that Heart of Dallas Bowl and best case scenario, that Meineke Card Bowl of Texas, which is third from the bottom in the pecking order. And that's where most people have Minnesota going at this point. Again, that's a bowl game against a Big 12 school.
Yeah, and obviously you look at that situation and Illinois last year, I know they had an assistant that helped out. And do you recall that? I mean, it was all of Zook's staff though that stayed and took care of that job as well. I assume, as I recall.
Yeah, it was. Remember, Vic Koenig kind of ran the team. Right. The defensive coordinator, is a terrific coach, and Petrino, and that was a nice staff he had. They stayed together. And coached that team to the bowl season under pretty trying circumstances. Like I said, won the game. So we'll see where Purdue's at here in a couple of weeks. And again, you have to like their chances. I mean, I look at your guys' side. I mean, some of the numbers for Illinois. I mean, I was at Bloomington last week, and I saw that debacle. And to think that Wisconsin scored 62 points in one game, and Illinois scored 63 points in 6 Big Ten games. I mean, and then defensively, though, too, that's probably been where they've been more disappointing even than on offense, because there's probably 5 or 6 legit NFL guys on that defense, yet they're really struggling on that side of the ball for the most part. And there really hasn't been a whole ton of injuries either.
Sort of surprising we're sitting here talking about this, isn't it? I mean, it was only a few days ago that Purdue was basically the walking dead, right? What did they do different, in your opinion, at Iowa to be able to get that kind of victory?
You know what, Kyle? I went back and watched the game on the on-demand thing on BTN, and Purdue did all it could to try to lose.
Yeah.
The 3 turnovers, the 10 penalties in the second half. I mean, on a win. I mean, Iowa had no business even being in that game. I mean, you look at the stats of total yards. So I guess in the end, what they did was they made plays at key times. I guess that'd be an oversimplification, but I think back just to the last few moments of the game when they made the 4th down stop and got the ball back and incredibly moved 37 yards in 2 plays with under 16 seconds to go. And then the Griggs kid comes on and kicks a 46-yard field goal, and Purdue hadn't kicked one over 40 all year. I don't think so. I think, again, they just made plays in crunch time. And, what more can you say about Robert Marr? I mean, what a neat way for him to here maybe be finishing his career, playing on a busted ACL, and just what a tough, gritty guy. And I tell you what, I wonder if the nation really realizes what he's doing here. And to me, it's just an incredible story.
Yeah, and you look at Marvin. That is what we talked about. May make this finish of the season really quite interesting if he can lead Purdue to 2 more wins and then to the bowl. The upper level of the Big Ten, you still seeing Nebraska as your odds-on favorite to win the Legends division?
I think so, Alan. I mean, there's no 10,000-pound gorilla outside of Ohio State. Now, I don't even think they're a 10,000-pound gorilla, and we know that they're not eligible. So, yeah, Nebraska, and then you get into the conjecture about the opponent out there. I think it could be Notre Dame. A lot of people think it could be Notre Dame, and they say, well, how can it be Notre Dame? Well, the scenario people are playing out here is Oregon ends up being number 1 in the BCS rankings. Of course, then they go to the championship game. That means the Rose Bowl's got first pick of a replacement team from among the eligible at-larges. And there may not be a Pac-12 team among the top 14 BCS teams to select, number one. Number two, if there is one, it could be like a 9-3 Stanford team, or like a 9-3, I don't know, USC team. So would the Pac-12 take a team like that and pass over maybe a 12-0 or 11-1 Notre Dame team? And again, we all know the ties the Rose Bowl has to the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, but golly, it sure would be hard to say no to Notre Dame with that kind of record, and knowing the eyeballs they bring, and knowing that Notre Dame hasn't been to Pasadena since 1925. So, again, that would be a very intriguing Rose Bowl matchup in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
You're
just looking at me.
I'm looking at you. I'm trying to get you the signal.
Where are you going this weekend, Tom?
I'm not going anywhere this weekend. Then I'm going to go to over to Columbus over Thanksgiving for that last game of the year. I was going to go to Madison, but I just saw, and like I said, I saw Wisconsin last week, and I'm going to see Ohio State next week. So I just decided to stay home this week and then finish up, like I said, next week at Columbus, Ohio, where maybe, just maybe, Ohio State tries to punctuate that 12-0 season.
You didn't want to go to Champaign this weekend?
Shocking.
You know what? I thought of it if I didn't. If I didn't have some other things to do, and I'll be honest with you. Sometimes you can see a whole heck of a lot more from the vantage point of your house when you're watching all these games. And when you have to get to the venue so early, and you can't always watch them all. So, it's kind of nice in some ways to be able to toggle around and see what's going on. And again, some fun storylines with Purdue and Indiana still alive. Iowa's probably dead, but still alive. And then see Michigan State Bowl eligible. They're 5-5 in Northwestern. So again, it's going to be a fun finish to the season here.
I'm sure your employer, the Big Ten Network, likes you saying that about sitting at home and watching it on TV. But I'm not sure some of the ADs across the league necessarily like that when there might be about 25 to 30,000 in Memorial Stadium tomorrow.
So did you guys see the story, too, about Michigan having trouble getting their students to go to games?
Yeah, I didn't see that, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, go to the Detroit News website. Angelique wrote a story about that, and so it's there's some things to be excited about in Ann Arbor, so you kind of wonder why there'd be any issue with getting students to go to games there, but it's just always kind of fun to I always monitor all the other newspaper sites in the conference and just sort of get the tenor of the fan bases and the media at the various schools across the league.
Yeah. Well, one last question. Obviously, we're turning to basketball season, and you keep an eye on that as well, I'm sure. And obviously, Purdue fans are lamenting a very difficult loss to Villanova, but this is a very loaded league this year. Probably not unprecedented, but we saw some teams sometimes back in the 80s and early 90s where it was this level. But tell me what you have seen here in the first 10 days of the basketball season.
So far so good. No real surprises. I took in that IU game versus Bryant last Friday night in Bloomington, and since then they won a couple more games. So they're the bellwether, Allen and Stacy and Kyle. But like you guys said, maybe through a couple other top 5 teams, Ohio State, Michigan. Again, so far so good. Again, I guess the X factor is you kind of wonder how many teams are going to get in the tournament. Who continues to evolve and who continues to get better, I guess. I never try to get too high or too low about what happens in November. If you're going to lose, now's the time to lose, right? Figure out what your issues are. Try to get a rotation established, roles developed, and that's what this time of year is all about. So, again, the Big Ten, the Big Ten needs some good news given what it's gone through the last few months with basketball, or with football, I should say. So it ought to be a fun winter.
Yes, and Purdue needs to, certainly tonight or this afternoon, I guess late this afternoon against Oregon State, the Boilermakers need to, as I've been saying, gather their nuts and berries for winter. They need to start winning they need to win football games, but they need to win basketball games too. But hey, Tom, thank you for joining us, and enjoy your weekend watching 47 football games, and then and I'm sure that game. Who is Ohio State playing next week, by the way? Is it Ohio U or is it Akron, or who are they playing?
I think it's Ohio Wesleyan. Tom Scott's on the water.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? That is, I've never been to. I've lived in that town during that event and gone to the peripheral parts of the event. But what a neat opportunity there. That's always a special game, even when both those teams are still pretty good. But Ohio State and Michigan, a very special event. So, Tom, thanks again. Have safe travels and have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Hey, anytime you guys know that, I appreciate it, and have a good Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
All right. We will take a 2-minute break, and we'll look forward to continuing this great show we're having. And I know we actually haven't gotten to some of your questions out there, but we will get to them. And if you stay tuned, stay put, and click on our sponsors' ads, we'll be happy and see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
Wouldn't it be great if we could all rest this easy? Well, when it comes to meeting your insurance needs, you can. State Farm agent Trent Johnson is there to get you the coverage you need and the discounts you deserve. Home, car, life, even financial services. It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
It's a Friday Night Frenzy. It's about tradition. It's about pride. It's about rivalries. It's about commitment. It's about teamwork. It's about the action of the game. On Friday nights, when area high school teams hit the field for the game, our team hits the field to get you the scores, the highlights, and all of the action. Friday Night Frenzy, a high school tradition.
Welcome back to segment 2, Gold and Black Live. We've upped our athletic ability here a great deal. And that's nothing against Stacy and Kyle, but Calvin Williams, who needs no introduction, but we'll give you one anyway. Assistant Athletics Director at Purdue, has been back for 2 years, but also had a very storied Purdue career as a receiver, 1985 to 89, redshirted in 85, played 86 to 89, and then played for some pretty good NFL teams, obviously, mostly with the Philadelphia Eagles. And,
correct.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan.
And talk a little bit about you've been back now for a year plus, and how that's been for you. You obviously oversee Purdue sports teams from track and field to volleyball to softball to cross country and wrestling. But how has that been for you? And has it been what you've expected coming back to your alma mater?
It's been what I expected and more. It's been great working with the various teams and getting to know the athletes, the coaches, and it's just been it's been great.
you have some personalities, obviously. Anytime you're around a Dave Shondell too long, he's a great guy, strong personality, fun, and obviously every one of those programs, and Scott Hinkle on down, they're trying to get to the next level. Talk about that relationship you've had to build with coaches, and maybe how that's how you've called on your experience from the past to not only be a mentor, be a friend, but also be somebody that can evaluate where these programs are going.
It's just about being personable, and that's one of my biggest attributes, I think, is just being a people person. So it was easy in that regard. Replacing a Roger Blaylock, that's tough. He's been on campus, had been on campus for more than 40 years, and that was a tough transition. Trying to gain their trust. But we've made strong strides, and I think they trust me in the vision and the things I've shared with them. It's been great, and I think it's been reciprocal in regards to the coaches, and the players have warmed up to me, and it's been great.
Yeah, Roger, obviously a legend at Purdue, passed away in April, and I think that the Purdue athletic family, that's a huge void, even to have that. But yet, what things did you, when you were on the job training and he was leaving, though? What kind of leadership did he give you, and things that you follow from in his footsteps to some extent? What are you taking from that?
I think the biggest thing that Roger instilled in me is that we, at the time, we both were on staff, so we work for the coaches.
Yeah.
We work for the teams. We try to be an advocate and be a resource to them and try to help them, get the things they need to have to be successful.
You look at, and you were a student athlete here, and the experience has changed. The world has changed dramatically, yes. Some for the good, some maybe not quite as much, but it has. You have a different type of kid that's here. How is that? Was that change more than you expected, or has it been? You just adjust to the way the kids are. They're obviously smart. They've had access to more training, more focus on team development or individual development towards a team. How has that been since your playing days?
It's different. They have a lot more resources, than we had when I was coming through Purdue. But it's great. It's how the sport has evolved, and each generation should be that way. So it's not one of those things where you look at, wow, if we had this, we could have done this. It's just how the sport has evolved, and the biggest transition I think is now you're having to deal with more of the AAU teams and the coaches and recruiting. So I don't envy the coaches in that regard. I don't have to deal with that so much, but I think that's been the biggest thing, how the AAU programs have come into the recruiting phase of athletics.
How about the coach? You obviously had to make a coaching hire in track and field, but take us through that process and what that was like for you, and what did you draw on as you tried to target that right person to take that job?
Just trying to, as you analyze the program, just trying to be a resource for the kids and having them have a good experience. It's always tough when you have to, go into a search like that because, Purdue is a great place to be. It's a Big Ten institution, so you have a lot of people interested in the job, and trying to narrow that search down was definitely difficult. But I think we got the right guy, a great recruiter, a great person, and Coach Green and the staff he's brought on. I think you're going to see amazing things from them in the future. Yeah,
and that is an interesting part of personnel and being able to get the right person at the right time, obviously, is what you're called to do. Let's go back to your college days. It hasn't been that long ago, but you obviously played on a time that teams that didn't win necessarily didn't have a winning season. So you can relate a little bit to what goes on. Has been the case this year where a team's trying to get itself back to a 6-6 and a bowl game. But does it take more as a player to go through a season where you haven't had week in, week out success, but you're trying to get back to a high level? Or talk about that dynamic a little bit.
For me, Alan, I was always the optimistic one. I always thought every week that I went into a week for game planning that I could win, and maybe it was a little naivety on my part, but that it was just in my heart, and I played and I trained accordingly, So it was just who I was. It was my makeup. You know, but it gets tough. You know, you get beat down a little bit about it. You know, but you just hope that all the guys will feed off of you, and you keep trying to be positive, and you know they feed off your energy, and you just keep moving forward.
We got a question about the world of Twitter and Facebook. Are you glad that wasn't part of your world from 1986 to '89 as a student athlete?
What you mean?
Well, the fact that you didn't have to deal with that, the world of social media and so much attention that way.
Yeah, it's so different. Yeah, you know, I don't even, you know, I don't tweet.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, you know, Facebook, any of that stuff. You know, so yeah, I'm glad that they have so much more exposure, so many things you have to watch out for, and you know, your life is out there now, so to speak. You know, so yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to deal with it.
2 year back, and I was working in the athletic department at the time when you were playing, but 2 of your greatest moments, at least from my perspective, your freshman year, redshirt freshman year, you come in against Indiana. Tell us the story a little bit about the gold uniforms. It's a great story, and of course, Leon Burnett in his last game at Purdue, the Boilermakers, an underdog against Indiana. Anthony Thompson, I believe his freshman year, a very good Indiana team. Tell us a little bit of the story about that, the gold uniforms, and what you recall about that.
We had no idea. I mean, we went out and practiced, warm up, normal, you know, game situation. You go out an hour before the game, and, you know, so about 15, 20 minutes, we go back into the locker room and laid out on the back of each one of our seats was the gold jerseys, and we were like, whoa! I mean, we were pumped.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, that was probably one of the bigger moments, if not the biggest moment, well, my senior year.
Yeah.
Being
we'll get
a
to that
athlete,
later.
Yeah, that was great, you know, and I still have that jersey framed up in my barbershop back in Baltimore. So.
How did that come to? Did you guys, as I recall the story, did you guys collect money, or did Coach Burnett collect? I couldn't remember. I mean, did the seniors set that up, or did the coaches set up, or do you know? As a freshman,
I think as a freshman, I had no clue. I think the seniors may have had something to do with it, and Coach Burnett may have brought them in. But they did a good job in not, you know, revealing to us what was going on. Like I said, I had no clue, but it was awesome.
As some freshmen do from time to time. Now, in that game, and I know you had a touchdown in that game, and there was some, you know, Purdue had some pretty good athletes. Obviously, Fred Strickland played on that football team. Jeff George was a quarterback in that game, but it came down to a last-second field goal. Indiana had the chance to win the game. And do you remember, did you watch that field goal, or it was blocked by, I think, Scott Schultz, but do you remember being on the sideline and what happened, or did you just, did you know you had it all along?
Just the freshman watching, you always hope, but you never know, you know, and you know, when things turn your way, you know, I always say, you know, when you prepare and the opportunity presents itself, you get lucky. We got lucky.
Yeah. 1988, another big moment in your career and for your team. At Ohio Stadium, and you've still done something that no team has done at Purdue since, and that's winning the shoe. And really a 17-year-old quarterback in Brian Fox, and I know you were a receiver that was looking to get the ball thrown to you from time to time. What do you recall from that game, a big win for Purdue under Coach Fred Akers?
Well, the biggest thing I remember is probably getting to walk right by Archie Griffin.
Yeah.
You know, that was awesome for me, you know, being, you know, always wanted to be a running back growing up, and he was one that I always watched growing up. So being able to, you know, actually walk by him and shake his hand, that was big for me. The other thing is that I didn't finish the game. I got knocked out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You know, okay. So I hurt my shoulder, and you know, we had.
Were you in the training room when it
No,
went in?
I was out on the field, you know, but I got knocked out because of my shoulder, but we held on, we came back and we won, and it was awesome.
17-year-old quarterback Brian Fox, I remember leading Purdue to that win. And then, and again, you had other in '89. I remember in your senior year, Eric Hunter comes in, and you went off against Michigan in the Big House. You had to, you know, and with 13 catches, I think for 160 some yards, Eric Hunter could throw it around a little bit. And you guys really put. You didn't win that game, but you made Michigan very uncomfortable in the second half of that game. What do you remember about that?
I just remember having an awesome game. You know, me and Eric hooking up for my third touchdown in the back of the end zone. We just made eye contact, and he flung it. I dove and caught it, and I just remember, you know, we can really do this. And then they come back on the ensuing kickoff, and they take it almost like to the 40-yard line, and you know they went on to score. But it was a good game. You know, it was awesome. My best game ever as a collegiate. So great memory.
Yeah, and then 1989, your last game as a collegian. A game that few expected, I should say. Indiana was 5-5. You guys you had it all on, but Indiana was playing for a bowl, playing for the Heisman Trophy, really, for Anthony Thompson. And you guys come out of nowhere. I think you were down late, come in to score 10 points in the fourth quarter and win that game. Tell us what you recall from that one.
All I remember is lining up, and I talked to Mike Dumas. He was a safety at that time for Indiana. And I remember lining up, and they called my number, and it was one-on-one coverage. And
you had a touchdown reception.
And I'm just licking my chops because they dialed it up, and this was exactly what we wanted. And it was a stick move to the corner, and I remember so vividly catching the ball and winning the open bucket, and that was awesome.
And that's why that game, no matter, as they always say, no matter what the records, it means something. And even coming from where you came from to be. What was it like to get to come to Indiana? You obviously were not a native Hoosier to come here, and how long did it take you to get to understand how important that game was? Obviously, you redshirted a year, but did you know it right away in '86, or did it take you a couple of years to understand the intensity of that rivalry?
You never understand the magnitude of it as a freshman. You know, you hear the ramblings, and a couple of weeks prior, you start to hear the build up, but until you're actually in the game, your second or third time, you kind of understand as you talk to more of the alumni, you understand the importance of it. Then when you actually look at the trophy and hold it in your hand, and you start to look at all the I's and P's and all the tradition, it really hits you about your second or third year.
All right, now you're going to be on the trip with the Purdue football team this week. A game tomorrow that on paper, with all of us that can sit there and just assume that things are going to work a certain way, but you go to a game in Illinois that Purdue's supposed to win. Illinois is really struggling. What do you see, and what did you see in Purdue's team last week that impressed you about maybe a change in direction here?
I just saw a team that's resilient. They had their backs up against the wall. It was a must-win situation where it is here out, and they stepped up to the challenge. I thought Marv is just a guy who's gives the team some extra oomph. And I think they believe in, and they're believing in themselves, and they haven't given up, and that's what I think is special about this team.
All right, well, Calvin, we're going to let you catch that bus. We thank you so much, and obviously, Calvin may not be back in time from Illinois tomorrow, but a big event tomorrow. Also, tell us a little bit about the volleyball event, trying to put a big crowd into Mackey Arena tomorrow. It'd be a really extra show if you played it in Ross-Ade. But nice. Obviously a big event tomorrow night in volleyball.
Well, I don't want to look past Ohio State. We have a very tough Ohio State, number 15 in the nation. We have to get past
tonight.
them. That's tonight in Holloway Gymnasium. Have to get by them. And that's going to be a tough challenge. They're a very, very good team. Two very good outside hitters. Tomorrow we're trying to pack in Mackey, and we're hoping, quite honestly, to get the lower bowl field. Hoping for about $5,000 or $6,000 to come in. They're number 2 in the nation. That's going to be another tough game. But if we can close out, these last 4 games, and hopefully we got a good shot at hosting the first round of volleyball regionals.
And then if you can get through that, obviously you can play at home all the way to the Final Four, which I know is just a piece of cake for Dave. We know Dave a little bit, and we love Dave because he always comes on and it fills us full of good stories. But we thank you again for coming on with us today in your busy schedule, and we wish you a good trip to Champaign, and obviously with all your work here, very much appreciated. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break on Golden Black Live. Bring Kyle and Stacy back, and Brian's off the A train, I think, and he'll be able to talk to us from Manhattan. We'll talk about what happened in that basketball game last night here in our final segment of Golden Black Live.
The Purdue Collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts. League and champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous. Simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's Purdue pride. A Purdue tradition. 17 game day locations.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
Let State Farm agent Trent Johnson handle all the moving parts to your insurance. Whether it's for auto, home, life, or financial services, Trent Johnson is there with more ways to help and more ways to save. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
It's a Friday Night Frenzy. It's about tradition. It's about pride. It's about rivalries. It's about commitment. It's about teamwork. It's about the action of the game. On Friday nights, when area high school teams hit the field for the game, our team hits the field to get you the scores, the highlights, and all of the action. Friday Night Frenzy, a high school tradition.
Sit up, everybody. We are on segment 3, and Stacy Clarity, Kyle Charters back with us. Brian Newbert online, on the phone line, that is. Brian, you there?
I am here.
God love you. And what's the weather like in Manhattan?
It is very cold, actually, right now, standing up against this wall on a busy street. But the smoke in my face is starting to keep me a little warm.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Well, nothing happened at the Garden last night, so I guess we can go on to something else. Now, really, what was your takeaway? Obviously, an amazingly difficult loss, some funny officiating, some play that Purdue would like to have back, obviously, but based on your blog at 2:46 in the morning, which was pretty coherent, for a non-coherent basketball game. What do you think now?
Well, the more I think about it, the more I think, as much as we talked about the flagrant foul on DJ Bird, Purdue was up 8 points with a minute and a half to go, and the flagrant foul happened with 45 seconds to go. So there was still time in the game. Obviously, the flagrant foul basically gave Villanova 4 points. Obviously, they had to make the 4 free throws. And on the possession following the flagrant foul, Tyrone Johnson fouls on the inbound. I was too far away from the play to actually see if that was a good foul or not. But, it was just kind of a really nightmarish sequence for Purdue. But if that sequence doesn't happen, there are still 45 seconds left in the game. So there really isn't any guarantee if all that doesn't happen, Purdue wins that game. Now, it probably wins the game, but there really aren't any guarantees. But still, it was I think we've all kind of seen that movie before. Purdue's had some instances the last couple of years, sort of the more things change, the more they stay the same. You look at, the Ohio State game in Mackey Arena years ago, the game at Missouri in 2007. Obviously, as people well remember, the Kansas game where Purdue's had pretty significant leads in the last couple of minutes of the game, and they've slipped away. So, as I said before, sort of the more things change, the more they stay the same. But, there were obviously circumstantial factors at play here where, there were certainly some concerns with the officiating. I have never been one to really blame refs for outcomes of games. I just kind of consider that part of the landscape. But it was pretty overwhelming yesterday. You look at 33 fouls. I think part of that is obviously Purdue's fault. I think they're still reaching in a little bit, still learning how to defend without fouling, stuff like that. But they just have to play smarter. There were some really bad turnovers down the stretch outside of Bird's deal, and, there were some obviously more missed free throws. So, we can talk about the officials all we want, but as Painter said after the game, they had every opportunity to put that game away, and they did not.
Well, I'm going to blame the officials.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the point. I don't understand what's the point of the rule. Like, They have to go back and review it? What's the point? I don't understand. Who does that help? Why do they? If it's flagrant, it's flagrant, isn't it?
Well, the point of the rule, I guess, is even if you don't make contact, they can whistle you for the flagrant foul. The same way that if you shoot a gun at somebody and don't hit them, you can get in trouble for shooting a gun at somebody. I guess, but I don't necessarily argue the rule in that sense as much as I argue the situational application of the rule in such a crucial situation.
Yeah,
I haven't had access to see the replay all that much, but it just seems like one of those things you don't call in that situation. I have never been one to say a ref shouldn't call something in a certain situation because it might decide the game, but something so technical, you would think that, I shouldn't say they would look the other way, but you have to almost go out of your way to watch that on film and make that call. And in that situation, I don't know why you go out of your way to make that call.
That's sort of my point is the new rule forces them almost to make the call. What was wrong with the old way they did it? I don't understand. If you look at it and you think it might be flagrant, then look at it on film. Why be forced to have to go to the monitor?
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
The whole monitor thing was long.
Yeah, I haven't seen I haven't actually seen it played back enough to know whether or not it was all that violent. I just remember the one from Manny Harris on Kramer where his elbows were obviously, and pointed in the direction of Kramer's face, and it was a very violent twitch he gave when he swung the elbow.
And that was before the new rule.
From my seat in Staten Island up behind the New York Knicks 50-51 Eastern Division champs banner up in the dark that he was just kind of flailing to try to keep the ball out of Villanova's hands.
Yeah.
And it just so happened his body twisted in a way where his elbows kind of came up a little bit. I certainly don't think he was swinging at anybody's face.
Yeah, and if you look at the replay close, and he doesn't hit him with his elbows anyway. He kind of hits him with the forearm. Stacey, we're going to give you a chance to ask a question. Would you like to ask one?
Hi, Brian. How are you today?
Hi, Stacey. I'm good.
I'm just curious, when you look kind of down the stretch, like you had mentioned, that call certainly, I guess depending on who's looking at it, Kyle obviously disagrees with me, but I think there are other circumstances that really determined kind of that final. When you look at the last play where Ronnie Johnson had the ball in his hands and ultimately ended up kind of airballing that three, did Matt talk about what was the play there, and how do you feel about having the ball in Ronnie's hands in that kind of a situation?
Yeah, that really wasn't a very hot topic after the game. There was so much big picture stuff that really kind of drowned out some of the minutia. But I just thought, they were obviously trying to get a good shot. They weren't trying to shoot too quick because through the course of the game, they really had a hard time keeping Villanova at a transition, especially in the first half. That really kept Villanova in the game in the first half. And I think in that situation, you just want to make sure you get something good. You don't want to rush something. Obviously, that didn't work. Whatever they were trying to get, at a reasonable point in the shot clock wasn't there. And obviously, Ronnie Johnson ended up just having to pull up just to get a shot off. But certainly not a well-executed sequence there for Purdue.
Yeah, we've had some comments about people that everybody's watching the replay saying the fact that Bird was fouled before he raised his arms. A question about Tyrone being 100%. Obviously, my fear, and this is a fan's fear, I guess, is that, oh my gosh, Tyrone's back to shooting free throws the way he's 1 for 4. He just, in his last couple, they didn't look good. But tell us about what you saw in terms of Tyrone's ankle and how he's coming along.
Well, I thought last night he looked okay. He was making jump shots. I can't remember what he was in the foul line. I know he missed
1 for 4, I think. Yeah.
But what I thought yesterday was they kind of turned him into a jump shooter a little bit when he got into the lane, which obviously is a very, very important part of his game. I thought Villanova's length kind of bothered him. They have a lot of 6'10", 6'11" guys down low. He's not obviously not the biggest guard. He's not the most athletic guy. He isn't going to go up over a lot of people. And I mean, you noticed when he got to the basket a couple times last night, he had to bring the ball down before he went back up with it because his first attempt was kind of thwarted, and then obviously a lot of his shots were affected. So I think Villanova was able to take away quite a bit of his offensive repertoire. But in terms of his health, he looked okay to me.
Stacey's putting words in my mouth, by the way.
What?
Yeah. I didn't completely blame the officials. I mean, the Purdue's turnover in the backcourt killed them. I thought the foul call on Tyrone Johnson, on Anthony Johnson's fast break, was actually the correct call. I know some people on the message board didn't think that was right, but that's the right call.
That was a good call. Absolutely.
He cannot shield a guy off there, and whatever happens after that happens after that. So I thought, Purdue did some things to shoot themselves in the foot there down the stretch too. I just think that call certainly
at the time when Tyrone
escalated it a little bit.
Tyrone gets hit across the gets a forearm across the nose, and at least the announcers, Len Elmore, talks about the whole, he thought the kid was ejected, and then it ends up being the other way, and it was strange. Let's talk a little bit about what's ahead for Purdue. Obviously, you'll be doing Game Day Live shortly, and yet, Oregon State, a team that took Alabama to the wire yesterday. This really becomes, even though I know it's at 5 o'clock on a Friday, but it is an important game for Purdue.
Oh yeah, it certainly is. I think we're gonna find out a little bit about these guys' mental makeup. They got a lot of young players play pretty prominent roles. Now, with that said, with the 2 losses Purdue's had, you can't blame it on youth, at least entirely. But this is going to be an important test for Purdue. You have a very short turnaround, less than 24 hours here. You basically might feel this morning when you woke up that you had a game taken away from you, depending on your perspective on how things went down last night. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys kind of shake off that adversity and whether or not they come ready to play. This is kind of one of those games where you have to lean on your experienced guys a little bit. DJ Bird, Tyrone Johnson, Anthony Johnson might have to get Purdue through this game a little bit.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will look forward to your work here shortly. Starting up in the Garden as the Boilermakers take on Oregon State, 5 o'clock, and we fully determined which network it is on. Is it on ESPN?
ESPNU.
ESPNU is what we say, but we were debating whether that we were trying to find it on our.
I was told this morning from Purdue it's ESPNU.
All right, well that's where we're going to tune in.
So.
And obviously you can listen to our friend Larry Clisby and Rob Blackman as part of the radio network as well. So, all right, Brian, we'll let you go, and we're going to continue our conversation here. Turning back to football and predictions, guys, what are we seeing for tomorrow?
I did 28-10.
I have no idea what I did.
Illinois?
Absolutely. Earlier in the show, I said Purdue was going to smoke them.
Okay.
So 28-10 is, I don't know if that's a smoking. Does that qualify?
I think so.
I think it does.
In Purdue terms this year,
I'm not even
I think
sure
that
Illinois
qualifies.
will get 10.
I have Purdue 28-14. I'm not really sure why I came up with that, but I just think that Illinois' offensive line. We've talked about Purdue's offensive line being pretty mediocre this year. Illinois' offensive line, not up to mediocre standards this year. 34, right? 34. I thought it was 32. They're even worse than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, 34. That's 3.5 almost a game, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Why did Brian put the picture of Mike Ditka up there? Just because it's the Bears and
I guess I don't know.
And it's orange and blue. I know they tie in together. He always has there's always some strange reason why he does stuff on that. So I'm always interested in that, but there may be more to it.
I'll be interested to see whether Purdue has a similar, and I know Illinois' defense does things differently than Iowa's. They probably try to bring a little bit more pressure and things, but got to continue to run the ball with Akeem Shavers and Ralph Bolden. I mean, those two, and it seems like if the line does anything well, it seems to run block better than it pass blocks. So run the ball with those two. Give Marv a little bit of time, and I think we saw that Robert has some talent, as it turns out, and I think that's a formula to win.
And Patrick Higgins said that on Wednesday when I asked him that question. Yeah, we absolutely are going to run the ball and not give up on it. So.
And Ralph is an easy guy to cheer for, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
So I always like seeing Ralph do well.
And so is Akeem.
Yeah.
For different, obviously different reasons, but.
I always like Brian because he caters to us 50-year-olds here because he's got Jeff Beck up there for Beckman. That's good. You have to be 35 plus to know what that is, and Brian barely qualifies for that. Do you know who Jeff Beck is?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm 33. I got it.
All right.
I'm 35, but I still don't know.
It's a good musical reference. Tom Dienhart, who we just had out, he had Purdue 27 to.
Is it
14.
Beck? Like Beck?
Jeff Beck is his name. his name. He was in.
But he just goes by Beck, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's going
Well,
Beck.
if you would have said that, I would have known. I
Beck,
didn't even know he had a first
man
name.
is the picture we're looking at. We really shouldn't be doing this. It's kind of like doing this on radio. We're pointing to our screens and pointing out there.
We've lost control.
All right, now the other thing that we've talked about a little bit, and we kind of laid off the subject because it's really appropriate to lay it off in terms of coaching transition and where we are with that, and yet we aren't anywhere. We don't know what. It's apparent that whatever's going to happen, whatever decision is going to be made, is going to be consistent with what Morgan Burke has done in the past, and that has been evaluating your coaches at the end of the season. But do you sense with the players and talking to them this week that are they just so happy they won and that's where all their energy is coming from, or do they also feel like they're still playing for their coach?
Well, I think the only thing they can do is play well and win. I mean, obviously this decision is out of their hands other than going out and playing well, and so I think that's what their focus is like Akeem Shaver said, I think last week, that the only thing we can control is how we play. And then you hope that's enough, that it matters. I mean, obviously most of the guys we've talked to about Danny Hope have been very supportive of him. I'm not entirely sure if you weren't, you would say it to us.
Yeah, right.
But in general, obviously, then the overwhelming kind of sentiment of the team and the players has been we like him, we want him to stay around, but we know all we can do is go out and play well. And so I don't know why it took them so long to kind of think that. You know,
yeah, I don't know either.
If you would have won a long time ago, we wouldn't even been having this conversation. But obviously, I think now, especially now, it's because there is chatter about it that they're really trying to come on strong to finish the year.
It's must win this weekend for Danny Hope and company, I would say. You have to win this game, and you have to beat Indiana, and it'll certainly make for an intriguing week and a half here, I would say. You know what? I just think if you're Danny Hope, you can't sell what he sold and fall so woefully short of that like Purdue did this year and have it not have some sort of consequence for that, I think. So that'll make it an interesting next couple weeks.
Well, you hope one thing we did say last week, you did feel there was palpable relief by the players is the fact that you finally get a win, and I think that's a good thing from that perspective. Okay, we are going to start our 1 minute long thank yous for all the people. I'm going to thank Stacy, and I'm going to thank Kyle, and I'm going to point to them too, which you shouldn't do. And thank you guys for joining us. And also, I want to thank Lydia and Kim Caldwell, and of course Gordon Jackson back in the back room. And we also want to thank Chad Evans because he gave us a good forecast for tomorrow. I think it's going to be a nice day in Memorial Stadium, a good late fall afternoon. And we want to thank you, the viewer, for joining us, and of course our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, and Follett's Purdue Pride. We will have a show. I will not be here, which will all be good for all the rest of you. Kyle Charters will host a big show next week. We'll try to conjure up a guest, or maybe Kyle says he wants to do it all by himself, so that'd be fine as well. And then we also will have one of our makeup shows. We had little technical problems early in the year. We will have a makeup show 2 weeks from today as well. And talk about how this football season has ended or whether it's going to be continuing. And obviously, there'll be some basketball to talk about as well. So thank you for joining us. We will see you I will see you in 2 weeks, but we'll see you next week on Gold and Black Live.